Hello, everybody, and
Hello.
welcome to our live stream office hours Q&A. So, super excited to be here and to hopefully answer any questions that you have about writing the feature, whether you're considering it or you're already in, wherever you're at.
Or
So,
feature screenplays in general.
yes, or feature screenplays
Whatever you want
in
to talk about.
general. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. If you already take the course, then you know Adam through feedback and or maybe some videos. But yeah, that's where we're at. So, I figured that today we would kind of run through the course a little bit and talk about how to get the most out of it.
Along with some
Get the
common
most
questions and concerns we'll cover.
Yes. So let me pull this up for us, and then we'll go. And also feel free to ask any questions anytime that we're going, and we will pull them up on the screen and get going. So in the meantime, while I pull this up, Adam, who is this course for?
This course is for people who have either never written a screenplay before or people who have written a screenplay before and they want to discover a new process and maybe have some mentorship through John Warren, and his this class is modeled after his advanced NYU screenwriting class. So for people who are interested in learning that approach and have written screenplays before, or people who have never written screenplays before, this course is very much for you. If you've written 20 screenplays and you're extremely happy with your process, maybe this course isn't for you. But if you're want to learn more about screenwriting, there's a lot. This covers pretty much the basics of what it takes to write a professional spec American screenplay. And when I mean American, I mean a script that will do well and read well in the American film industry. That you could obviously apply lessons anywhere. And we have many international students. So yeah, it's for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here we go. I'm going to pull up the curriculum. So if you are in writing the feature, this is what you look at. You get 1 week at a time, and eventually you will have all 10 weeks. And each of the weeks are really focused on what's happening to your protagonist and are broken down by very specific writing assignments that you're going to end with every single time. So the first week you're doing log lines and starting to read some reference films that we have. The second week you're doing log lines and brainstorming an obstacles list. So obstacles that your protagonist could encounter. And that's something that you'll send to Adam and he will give you feedback on. And then from there, we're moving into the story beats. So really outlining your story. We do Act 1. We break Act 2 into 2 weeks, divided on the midpoint. Act 3. And then we move into sequencing and carding. So we have a whole unit kind of dedicated to how do you put scenes in order and what literally goes on your cards as a professional screenwriter, stuff like that. We move into doing your first draft, of course, and revisions. And then finally, we end with this little module that's sort of like the business of screenwriting. So what do you do now that you have a written script? Or like, how do you know when it's ready to send out? Or how do you take meetings? How do you get representation? Things like that. So that is a very fast overview of the course. And I figured that it could be good to talk a little bit about John's approach to story. And I find that this is, if you haven't heard us talk about it before, I find it can be useful to understand kind of his point of view beyond the course, just kind of like how we came up with this structure, like where this came from, why it is the way it is. I find it's helpful even if you're already in the course, just to help make sense of the material in your head. So I want to talk about how this is a very protagonist-centric story process.
And when we mean protagonist-centric and John's point of view on protagonist-centric screenplays and stories, we mean a story centered around a singular point of view with a pivotal, active, and kind of that point of view, that character being pivotal, active, and essential to the narrative. Like they drive the story forward. Their emotional growth is the means by which the story exists, right? Like this is about a singular point of view and how that point of view changes and grows. What John likes to call flaw turning into embracing inner need, right? And that character, when I say pivotal and when I say active, we mean a character with a singular objective. Like this is about one character who's pushing forward, and their emotional growth is defining the emotional undercurrent of the story, and their pushing forward defines the plot of the story. So it's about a character changing, both externally and internally. Rambling a little bit there, but
no, I think it's important. So then let me grab this link and I will show you what we're talking about. So a lot of our process, if you have studied screenwriting at all, you probably heard of things like save the cat, 3-act structure, inciting incident, protagonist, all those like big words of story. You might even be familiar with the hero's journey. And where John's theory kind of fits into that is we've worked really hard to strip out all of the sort of almost like judgmental terminology, the stuff that like pushes it in the direction of fantasy, like the elixir and like the wise mentor, all those types of things. We've stripped them back to their core purpose and story. And with this, it fits hand in hand with most of their screenplay ideas out there. Like, it's not going to be incompatible with the other stuff that you've read. It just kind of is going a little bit deeper to explain the why. So this is very much about like why these things should be the way they are, how the puzzle of your story pieces together, and yeah. And we try to do it as like agnostically as we can.
Functional and flexible terminology. So like when we use a term, we aren't just making up terms that aren't like accepted industry wide for the most part, right? Like inciting incidents and inciting incident in all of these different theories, right? Because it's just universally observed to be a descriptive aspect of stories, right? When we will use maybe more streamlined language, like for example, inner need, or normal world, we're using the language itself has like a flexibility, and it's based around its functionality, right? Like this can encompass many types of stories. We're not saying, and we're also saying this isn't like arbitrary guidelines that you have to like, this isn't a formula. These aren't arbitrary guidelines that you have to like copy and paste, plug in. This is a framework that's flexible to your needs, right? And the language is functional for that framework. That's the idea. And also, we're a little more detailed in Act 3, I think, than some of the other theories.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, our Act 3, we really try to break it down beyond. I found that a lot of the screenwriting books are kind of like, and then end it. It's like you focus so much on Act 1, it's so Act 1 heavy that by the end they're just kind of like, now tie up all your loose ends, complete their transformation, and be done with it. And
what is it? It's the rebirth and return, right?
Yeah, the rebirth, the return. Yeah.
Well, what does that actually mean, right? In terms of an active protagonist in a screenplay, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we've tried to solidify a lot of those ideas. So like rebirth is basically a combo of these two beats right here. They're in their ultimate test and they fail going into Act 3. And they have a complete low where they're at the lowest they've ever been, and that's what pushes them to change, right? So that's the rebirth. And then the return is the stuff that happens after that, which is kind of like, okay, you finally overcome your flaw, which, by the way, can be negative or positive. We can get into that a little bit later. But you finally completed your arc. Now you need to prove it. And that's the return. You've been reborn. Now you need to return and go back and fight again. And so you get this all or nothing moment where the protagonist is completely committed now. And they go in, guns blazing into the fight. And there's a series of 3 fast beats that happen, where initially it looks like it's a catastrophic failure. Then they do a decisive action that they would have never done before. And then they have an unexpected success. And it's that combination that makes really, really powerful.
But the power of this doesn't come from those beats necessarily. It's the internal consistency between beats, right? Like, for example, if you just have an arbitrary decisive action that isn't connected to the protagonist's emotional journey, it's not going to read, right? Like, understanding that, and that's really what that's what John covers in the course, like this sort of this internal storytelling logic. So you will know what the beats are the beats, and the beats matter, but they don't matter as much as a writer having like a toolkit that they can apply flexibly to their stories, right? Like, and to like, if you want to approach Act 3 with this framework, final fight can be very useful if you understand these types of 3 subbeats can be very useful if you understand the motivation behind those beats and like the point of the story. Like, what are the questions you're trying to ask? Like, when somebody's reading your screenplay, it's like, who's this about? Why should I give a shit? And how does it matter in the end, right? That's the important stuff, right? This is just a means to getting there. And John's course really focuses on just like a very grounded point of view on all of this, which I think is what sets him apart. Like, we don't have arbitrary pronouncements. It's more, functional, inevitable, useful tools.
Yeah. It's like, we say it's descriptive, not prescriptive.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So it's observing this organic thing, which is story. And when you put that into a 90-minute block of time, it tends to take this shape. And the stories that stick with us tend to be shaped in this specific way. And so we are attempting to kind of identify the things that you see over and over and over again and explain how the connections between them make it so powerful so that you can replicate it. And it's pretty fun once you kind of understand the structure to realize that, yeah, basically everything follows it. Like, a lot of times really people come in and they think like, no, I like this one artist who does really random stuff, like really weird stuff. Like, they're super creative. They don't follow structure. They break all the rules. Well, then when you look at the rules and you actually understand what they're doing, you go in and you notice, no, they do follow the rules. They might do it in a way that we're not used to seeing, but they're hitting all of these emotional beats. Because that's just, again, the way that the shape that story takes when you put it into a 90-minute frame. This document here is something that we call a tentpole document. And so that's the only term we have made up, is the tentpole document. That's the only term that's really unique to John. And basically what it's talking about is it's the core tent poles that hold up the tent that is your story. Without these poles, your story falls down. And once you've identified all of these, you know your movie. Like, having this filled out is a complete movie. And we can also, I shared a link already, which is to our vault, which you can have access to whether you're in the course or not. But this is for anybody. These are films that we've broken down into that tentpole document for you all to review and have access to. So this is one that's in the course, Jojo Rabbit. So if you've already started, then you're probably looking at it. But this is a way that we filled it up for that film. And again, see, it's like less than 2 pages, and that is the movie.
And
When
it's
you
very
have this,
useful to like what's great about this tool is that it's right, Alexi, it's the movie, but like it's also like if you're writing your own story, it's like a 2-page outline, right? Like it's not like a detailed beat sheet, or like it's not super hard to write a 2-page outline. It's flexible. You can change it if you need to. Like if you're halfway through your story and you realize, my objective doesn't really work, you can just go back to your outline and change it super fast. It doesn't. It's much easier to move around the narrative Legos as you need in your story. It's a tool in that sense. It's not like an arbitrary document you're filling out, because the longer the outline, the harder it is to maintain a lot of times.
I want to talk a little bit about kind of backing back up to the course specifically and how it came to be and why I really believe in it and why I wish I had it sooner. But so basically, I was John's student from 2012 to 2016 at NYU. So I did the film school thing, and he was everyone's favorite. Sorry, I still have a cough. He was everyone's favorite, and he is somebody who really studied story on his own. When he was in film school, there weren't all these books out yet about screenwriting, so he would go to his library, take out a script, and have his yellow legal pad of paper and read until he was identifying, oh, this is a really big moment, I'm going to write it down. And then after he'd done that with enough scripts every single day, he said, you know what? All of these tend to hit this beat around this page. That's really interesting. And just like noting other things about the script. And so that is what we mean by this is very much like observational. And then it completely lines up with a lot of the theories that have evolved in the years since. But that is where this came from. And so after I graduated, John and I were talking about how we wanted, about like basically how NYU is so exclusive, like, and small, and it's not accessible to everyone, and how that means that so many stories in the world never go through NYU or any film school, and how great it would be if everybody had the tools to write. So we ended up our hot girls are back, putting together, writing the short first, and then writing the feature, to try to make screenwriting more accessible to everybody, wherever you are, whatever's going on. And the thing that was so great about this is that I had John for 4 years, but I never had the chance to really sit down with him and one-on-one push him to explain more, right? So when we were writing the feature, it was Adam and I. Adam, who'd never taken his class, and me, who had his class for 4 years. And we were both asking him questions and trying to really understand the why of what he was talking about. So what we ended up with is everything that he would have covered in his 1-year advanced screenwriting seminar at NYU, but with us pressing him to go deeper, right? With us pressing him to ask why and pulling up all of the questions and being like, okay, can we explain, like, can you explain the connection between this? Like, why is it that you need to raise the stakes? All of that. So that's kind of the genesis of the course. And then the reason why I wish I had it sooner is because it is so it answers so many of the questions of like, how do I literally do this, right? Like, if you read all the screenwriting books, for whatever reason, most of them gloss over how you actually write scene description. Like, they tell you that it should be there, but they don't tell you how to write it. They tell you to like eavesdrop on people to understand dialogue, but they don't tell you like, okay, this is how you should use it. Like, when do you withhold information? When do you give it? How do you introduce characters? All of those technical questions, like getting really deep into it. Yeah. And then Adam, I know you had a different experience with us making this course. You weren't so sure you believed in structure at first.
Well,
And
no, I
then
believed in structure. I believed in structure. No, that's not totally accurate, but my appreciation for deep outlining uh, was enhanced for sure. And like my understanding of the connection of the emotional character arc journey and the outlining process was like what that could look like and how to create internal consistency in outlining. And John's approach to that was what was new for me. I was never a pantser though, unfortunately. Narrative wise, no, I'm never a pantser.
Yeah, but so yeah, that's sort of the genesis of the course, and I hope also kind of gives you a sense of what it's going to be like. It's all very project based, so it's not that we just teach you everything and say write your script. It's that every single week you're building on what you wrote before, and if you follow it, you will end with a script where there's never a massive leap that you need to take by yourself. Like you'll never have log line and then now you're writing scenes. You know, you will connect the steps along the way to help you get there. So something else that I wanted to mention, especially for if any of you are actually taking this course right now, is that a lot of times we have people who are pretty much on track for weeks 1 and 2, and then you start getting into these act breaks where you're supposed to be picking, or you get into the acts where you are writing the beats for Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. And people get a little bit, they start doubting themselves a little bit. They start like second guessing a lot of their choices, and they say like, I'm just going to sit with week 5 for a while until I figure it out. And then I'll move on to week 6. And they stay on week 5 for like a month or something, trying to figure out all those beats. And what we recommend very, very strongly is that you push through to week 8, because we are going to give you tools that help you really see like a top-down understanding everything that you just learned. So if you're going through and you're like, you know what, I don't exactly know what my final fight's going to be. I don't know what the best midpoint is. Just keep going. It's okay if you leave some stuff blank in your Tentpole document through these middle weeks. Just keep going, get to the end of week 8, and then you can hit pause and kind of process everything and try to put it into a Tentpole document. But that's a big tip that we have. Adam, do you have any other advice for people who are coming into the course fresh?
No, I think the biggest thing is to keep moving forward and to be as flexible and thoughtful as possible. I'd also say if you're going to take the course and the project you work on, it shouldn't be a passion project you've been working on for years. Take the attitude with this course to get the most out of this course is to learn, right? Like write a learning screenplay with maybe that's fun. Like it's a concept that you feel like isn't so heavy. Like what I'm saying is if you've written an autobiographical novel that you're adapting into the screenplay in this course, I would highly recommend saving that for after you've written something using this approach. Write something that's self-contained, focused. You can learn the most you can out of this process, right? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to, no one who takes any course or any screenwriting philosophy will 100% you borrow every single aspect of that philosophy. They'll take the things that work for them, right? And you're going to know what works better for you and what doesn't work for you if you have a learning project rather than like the deep personal thing that's like you already know the plot. You're not going to change stuff. You want something you can be light with and you can learn with.
For sure. It's like if you're adapting your life, you realize that one character would be an excellent antagonist who wasn't an antagonist in real life.
Yes.
You're gonna handcuff yourself. You're gonna lock yourself up by getting stuck in the but it didn't really happen that way mindset that people have. And I mean, sometimes it's more subtle than that. sometimes it's not that like you're really clinging to a character being good or something. A lot of times it has to do with like, are you willing to push the flow enough when they're a stand-in for yourself? And like, are you separating two characters who should really be one, because in your life they were two separate people, but really dramatically they both serve the exact same function? You'd be much better off combining them. And like, it adds an extra barrier to a process that's already going to be making you think differently than you're used to. And so cutting down all the barrier that you can is gonna serve you well. So that's why we recommend really choosing something light. Like, think about movies that you've really, really enjoyed and the genres that you've really, really enjoyed, and just kind of write something that's fun. And fun for you does not necessarily mean like not dark, like you could do like intense horror, but just make sure it's something that's really fun for you. That's the main bit of advice. And then Adam, you see people going through the feedback process. Do you have any more advice on like what you see people get stuck on?
If people get stuck on log lines and they get stuck on outlines, which are the two projects we have in the course, be flexible. Don't worry if your log line's not perfect. At the end of the day, you're expanding your understanding of your story and using new tools, right? You'll find the tools that work for you. You'll find the way of thinking that works for you. Like, you're not going to take this course and like 100% use everything. That's not the point of this. This is a framework and a whole suite of tools and approach and like way of thinking and working. And you're going to probably get a lot out of it, but not everything it will work for you. So be flexible. Don't get frustrated if like something's not working in your story. Be flexible. Don't be afraid to change, but also be decisive. Like, follow your gut.
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of it is like, screenwriting is it's a mental challenge in like letting go of things and trusting yourself and trusting the process. And the first script you write is going to be the hardest, because you're also really having to learn to trust yourself and understand that you can't edit a blank piece of paper. You can't make a blank piece of paper better. You can make a terrible draft better, but you can't edit nothing, right? So it's something that we all go through as screenwriters every single time. Is even now when I've written like 6 features, Adam's written a ton of features too. You start writing, you get to a certain point in your planning where you're like, existential crisis, what am I doing? And this happens to every single screenwriter, where you're like, did I choose the right idea? Am I making the wrong choice? Does this even make sense? Blah, 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 blah. And this is where most people give up the story and try to start something else. But the truth is that that's going to happen every single time, even if it's a fantastic idea. And you really just have to trust that you can edit it later. Go all the way through, get yourself a rough draft, and then worry about it. But if you can just decide, I'm going to do a script about a talking dog trying to find pirate treasure, and just lock in on it and go, then you'll be better served than kind of bouncing all around and doubting yourself constantly, if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm trying to think about any other advice that we might have for people who are writing the feature now or are considering it. So right now we have a special session that is open until midnight tonight. So that means that the enrollment is less than it usually is for off season. And so you have until midnight to sign up for it, and then we'll probably open it up sometime in the winter again. But yeah, it's available to you now. And I guess we've already kind of mentioned who would benefit most from it. I mean, I would have benefited from it again, and like I said before, I went to film school for 4 years, and it was just like a level of depth and connection that I didn't have.
Also, we spell it out for you. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of like saying the thing that's in between the lines in the screenwriting book. Like, well, how do you actually fill out the card? How do you actually and listen, you might not use that in your future, but to see somebody, or you might, but like to see an example, to really see an application of a concept discussed, that's very valuable to somebody, especially if you're new.
Yeah.
But also, I
Absolutely.
would say one more thing is, it's kind of, if you just need motivation, if you want to like write a script in a few months and have John sort of mentor you along the way and like use the process, it could just be a good excuse to write something new with particular guidelines and guardrails as an experiment. I think there's value there. I've never regretted learning more about writing or anything really. Like, it's all just information, right? The question is it information that well, what are you going to get out of it? That's what really matters. And like being flexible, like I said, as you go through, don't be, keep your brain on, apply things for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, we also obviously have our Discord where you can come in and ask questions anytime you want. We do coffee class every single Friday. And if you have a random question, we can hit on it, and we do. So you're never in the process alone. There's that link in case you want to come to our Discord. And then, yeah, coffee class is live every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So if you were curious about that, you can always pop in there and ask any questions about where you're at, what you're doing. Even if it's off topic, we'll find a way to circle to it. And yeah, I guess if another thing is that if you, since the course closes at, this is writing the feature.
Yeah, it's another class of writing the feature.
Mm-hmm. So here we go. Here's a question from Thomas. Thomas says, will you be accountable to John Warren or other students if you join the course, or is it just a master class that is open to you whenever you want once you enroll? Thanks. So Adam, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So there is a feedback component that is live, like in the sense of, and it's basically, you'll be writing to me basically, and I'll give you feedback on both your outline and logline concept and obstacle aspect of the course. So that's the live element, but the rest is completely, the rest is a combination of community and Discord, sort of sharing process and community. But yes, the rest is more masterclass style. John was filmed. All the John's portions are filmed, and us too.
Yeah. Yep. But so basically, if you start it and then something comes up in your life, you have access to it forever. So you can always come back later. But we do recommend trying your best to stay on pace if it's at all possible with your life. Just to make sure that you finish it, right? Like if you can make yourself stay on pace, then I think you will retain, you'll be able to make those connections a bit easier that are happening week to week. Ooh.
What?
We got another one.
Oh, wait, sorry. Wait for a second.
Another hot girls.
So we had 69 girls XYZ, and now we have girls 18.online. And this is we're getting infected.
I was looking at our blocked chat, like at all the usernames we had blocked, and every single one of them was like, girl waiting for you. I don't know how they find us, but maybe the girls really like screenwriting. Who knows?
69 girls all writing screenplays. There you go.
Emily, this is the same thing. If you've already gotten into writing the feature, then yeah, you already have access to this.
Yeah, you've got the class. That's it. Well, this is just opening up to other people.
Although we have added something new that we're trying, which is story consultations. So that's separate from writing the feature, but it's something that you can, if you wanted, Thomas, you could look into the story consulting thing, which is basically that you could book private sessions with Adam and I both. We both show up to these meetings, and we will work with you one-on-one for an hour.
We do offer
and
that.
Yeah, and there's
but we also offer the writers room, which is our Patreon, which is a weekly Tuesday workshop that alternates between a special monthly project that's kind of fun and opt-in, and every other Tuesday, an open sort of space to talk about screenwriting and your projects specifically. So like the purpose of that is to develop your portfolio over time, to like in conversation with us, like share where you're at, what your problem is, share pages and do scene readings, sort of help people have, the idea is to help people have accountability and, write their shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, the consulting thing is really, really nice, but you would like,
it's very specialized. I would say like, don't do that if you're like,
yeah.
if you don't have something very specific to talk about. Like the way to maximize it is to be like, you got a particular screenplay with a particular issue and like you want our point of view on it, right? Like that's what that's for. Like if you're just want general like sort of accountability and shared dialogue on your writing process, the writers room in the Patreon is way cheaper, but also way better for that. So they have different functions, different purposes. If you
get the whole community with the writers room, and with the consulting, it's just me and Adam, which is great too. But if you are interested in the community aspect, then we meet every Tuesday, and we'll read your stuff. And we are now consistently recording all those sessions. So even if you're not
more active than we used to be in that respect.
Yeah, we figured out a system for making sure that all of them are recorded and then posted to the Patreon. So you can now submit work, and we'll critique it without you there if you want.
Totally. And also, if you're not interested in spending any money at all, Thursdays, we have an open workshop where we do prompts and then open screenplay submissions every other week. So like up to 5 pages of, if you want to have your stuff read, we've got a Google Drive every week. We look in the Discord every Thursday in the open workshop. So if you want to just try out the community aspect and to see if you can get something out of it, that's totally free.
So here we go. And actually that's coming up this Thursday. So let me share this link. So this is a link to our Thursday event, which is Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
A lot of links.
I know, all the links, but this is free. So I'd recommend just popping by no matter what. We're always just doing table reads and stuff like that in the community and reading people's stuff. So if you go to that link, you can come in, share your work, get it read, get some feedback on the spot from me and Adam and the rest of the community, and see how you like it. But I should have labeled. Can I edit my message? I don't think I can because of how I send them. I should have labeled them to make it a little bit clearer. But the last link that I just sent is totally free, and we do it every single Thursday. So I hope that you will check that out. And then the link above it is to the writer's room, which has a small monthly fee. It's $12 a month, but we meet every single week. And basically it lets us, since there's fewer people, it lets us cover more, lets us go deeper into like your development process rather than just reading the final pages. So I hope that that's helpful.
We covered a lot.
Yeah, we did. Sort of an overview of everything we've got going on. So in terms of free stuff, we have 2 free courses, writing the short, writing the scene. Every Friday we do a live session. Every Thursday we do a live session. And then our fancy schmancy writing the feature.
That's right.
Which is what is open right now until midnight.
Consulting and the Patreon. So those are our paid options to engage.
Yeah.
It's good.
So I hope that this was helpful
And also,
for you.
I accept personal checks up to $1 million, just as a gift. If you want to just
Accept gifts, yeah.
yeah, I'll accept those, but I mean that's separate from the company though. So you just DM me. If you just want
There you
to
go.
pay me, I'll PayPal me. I'll accept no less than $250,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to
I will.
attract a more exclusive, fan base.
Fancy crowd, yeah. What was I gonna say? I don't even remember anymore. Only up to $1 million.
Yeah, listen, I'm not greedy. I'm reasonable. Yeah. I'm also not that expensive, You can have my soul for $1 million, 100%. Tell me what you want.
But not $101 million.
Not 101. No, I'm not that expensive, and I know it.
Yeah.
My soul is not worth that much. On that note, let's wrap this up. Writing the feature, it's out right now. It's not out, it's open, and you can get it and learn about screenwriting with John Warren. He's great. He's got some good anecdotes.
Oh yes, he does. That is very, very true.
That's my favorite thing about John.
John is filled with anecdotes. He was in the industry far too long, and is still gathering stories. So here, I'm gonna grab that link for you again. This is for the big course that closes at midnight. And if you have questions, pop into the Discord and ask us. We'd be happy to take a look at them. But that is it for now.
Thanks so much, everybody.
See ya.
Adios.